My name is Don Hunsaker. I am the Dean of the School of Design Studies here at the BAC. And this is our first event in the fall 2026 lecture series. And the lecture series is entitled Just Practices. And when we speak of just practices, we mean an inclusive design process that makes all community members feel welcome and confers a sense of balance, belonging, and well-being. Tonight's speaker is Dr. J. Davis Harte. Dr. Harte earned her Master of Science from Oregon State University in Design and Human Environment in Interior Design. She earned her PhD at the University of Technology, Sydney, Australia, in health, with an emphasis in design. Her doctoral thesis research focused on improving the healthcare environment for families during childbirth. Her research and practice continues to explore how the built environment shapes the physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. She is the co-founder of the Trauma-Informed Design Society, and she is also the co-founder of the Global Birth Health Design Network. Dr. Harte is our own education director and faculty in the Design for Human Health program here at the BAC in the School of Design Studies. I've had the very great benefit of working with Davis, call her Davis, very seldom do I refer to her as Dr. Harte, for the past 10 years. So tonight, Dr. Harte, in her formal role, will share emerging research exploring how we might rethink the home as a place that supports both work and well-being. Please welcome Dr. Harte for her lecture entitled Rooms That Remember Safety, Trauma-Informed Design.
Thank you, Don. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. For those who would benefit from a visual description, I am a white woman with a pixie-esque type brown haircut, wearing glasses, and I'm standing at the front of the room wearing a black shirt and 5 pants. I would like to begin by locating this as a design studies lecture, more of a conversation, not only a trauma-informed design conversation. Whether your work sits in architecture, interiors, preservation, sustainability, landscape, development, human health and well-being, or somewhere between those territories, the shared question tonight is this: how do designed environments shape our capacity to regulate, learn, work, connect, recover, and flourish? The title, Rooms That Remember Safety, asks us to think about safety not simply as something a person possesses, but as something environments can repeatedly support or repeatedly ask us to recreate for ourselves. This evening talk draws substantially from a forthcoming chapter called Creating Home as Haven, Trauma-Informed Design for Work from Home Flourishing, developed with Ashley Gonzalez, Alina Osnaga, Adrian Erdman, Krishna Srinivasan, Janet Roach, and Christine Cowart for the Routledge volume Flourishing by Design at Work, edited by Jenna Mickes. And something I'm particularly pleased about, 3 of my 6 co-authors are graduates of our Design for Human Health program here at the BAC. I'm going to use that work from home research as a lens tonight, but ultimately we're going somewhere larger toward how environments can support regulation, agency, belonging, and flourishing. So the home is our starting place, not our endpoint. Before we get into any of the research, I want to invite you to think about your own experience for just a moment. Think of a place where you feel like you can think more clearly. Don't analyze it yet, just picture yourself there. Now think of a place that does the opposite, a place that somehow drains you. Maybe you become distracted more easily. Maybe you feel restless, tense, tired, or you simply want to leave. You don't need to tell me what either place is, just notice what came to mind. Those are all design questions. And that's really where I want to begin tonight, not with a particular building type or discipline, but with the lived experience of being a human being in an environment. We'll use the home office as an unconventional workplace. Consider stress, allostatic load and languishing, bring in trauma-informed design as a way of thinking about regulation, and put that into conversation with boundary theory and supportive design. Then I'll introduce 3 work-from-home archetypes, the segmenter, vollier, and integrator, and show how very different environmental strategies can support each other. And then we'll pull the lens back out again, because this isn't ultimately a lecture about home offices. It's about what these ideas might mean for design studies and architecture more broadly, and for how we shape environments that support human health and flourishing. Before we go further, I want to offer a brief content note. Tonight we'll be talking about stress, trauma, and the ways environments can interact with our nervous system and lived experiences. Some of what I share may bring you into contact with experiences of your own or experiences of people you care about. Nothing we're discussing requires you to stay fully engaged with every moment. Please feel free to shift your attention, move, step out, or do whatever you need to take care of yourself. And I offer that deliberately. If we're going to talk about trauma-informed design, about agency, choice, and regulation, then those principles should also be present in how we gather and learn together. Safety is not a soft outcome. It is a design condition. I want to start with a very ordinary problem, the kitchen corner. A home can become a workplace before it becomes a workspace. Imagine a desk wedged between the recycling bin and the dog crate, your back facing 2 different entrances, domestic chores continually entering your visual field, and the possibility of interruption always present. None of these conditions is catastrophic, and that's precisely the point. They create friction. Friction asks for vigilance. Vigilance repeated over time becomes fatigue. The problem is easy to interpret as personal. Why can't I focus? Why am I so tired? Why am I not better at working from home? But the problem may not be a lack of willpower. It may be a lack of environmental support. And the kitchen corner wasn't really the problem. It revealed a much larger design question. The home is not a blank slate for work. It is an active participant in regulation, identity, and flourishing. Work from home is an unconventional workplace embedded inside domestic life. It makes boundaries visible between care and labor, work self and home self, privacy and connection, technology and embodiment. It also exposes something important about flexibility. Flexibility is not equally distributed. A spare room, control over noise, the ability to close a door, or even the freedom to choose when and where to work are resources. So work from home belongs in design studies because it sits at the intersection of the domestic realm, professional labor, and human regulation. and it asks us to design beyond productivity towards flourishing. One way to understand why these seemingly small environmental conditions matter is through allostasis. Allostasis means achieving stability through adaptation. Our bodies are extraordinarily good at adapting, but adaptation has a cost. Allostatic load is the cumulative wear and tear of repeated adaptation under stress. Noise, glare, interruptions, lack of boundaries, lack of meaningful recovery. These can become part of the cumulative burden of adaptation when the body is repeatedly asked to compensate. And of course, these burdens are not distributed equally. US research has consistently documented racial disparities in allostatic load, with Black women carrying a particularly high burden, reminding us that the body experiences an environment, arrives with histories and exposures that design cannot treat as neutral. This is where chronic stress also becomes a design problem. An unsupportive environment is not merely inconvenient or unsightly. It can repeatedly ask the body to do regulatory work that the environment itself should and could help carry. The body carries what the environment does not support. And this helps us distinguish functioning from flourishing. Languishing is useful here because someone can still answer emails, attend meetings, meet deadlines, care for children, and appear entirely functional while simultaneously experiencing diminished vitality, meaning, connection, or well-being. Flourishing does not mean the absence of stress. Humans' lives contain stress. Rather, it means having access to meaning, growth, connection, competence, and agency under supportive conditions. So our design question becomes, what environmental conditions help people move from merely enduring or functioning toward regulation, agency, and flourishing? So now that we've established the problem, domestic workplace friction, repeated adaptation, and the difference between functioning and flourishing, we need a way of thinking about design that takes safety, agency, regulation, and lived experience seriously. And when I say safety, I want to expand that word for a moment. As designers, we're very accustomed to thinking about physical safety, life safety, building codes, egress, preventing injury. Those are essential. But safety is also psychological and emotional. It can mean being able to anticipate what will happen next, having meaningful choice and control, being able to see without feeling overly exposed, having privacy when you need it, feeling that your identity and culture are respected, knowing that you can leave, retreat, connect, or ask for support. A space can be physically safe and still not feel safe. And that distinction is fundamental to trauma-informed design. One thing that distinguishes the trauma-informed design framework is that we do not understand design as only the physical outcome. We work across three interconnected spheres: policy and practice, design process, and built environment. That matters because a beautiful room cannot compensate for a harmful policy. And an inclusive policy can be undermined by a design process that reproduces power imbalances. Likewise, a thoughtful participatory process still has to translate into physical conditions that support people. Trauma-informed design asks us to hold all three together. Within those three spheres sit 11 interconnected domains that help translate trauma-informed principles into design practice. I'm absolutely not going to teach you all 11 tonight. I want you to see the breadth. So I'll share one very concrete example of why process matters. Designers working on a shelter for unhoused youth sought direct input from young people with lived experience. They carried most of what they owned with them and were understandably concerned about theft or loss. That insight translated into something remarkably ordinary, lockers, but the effect was not ordinary. Secure storage meant a resident did not have to remain vigilant over their possessions while trying to sleep, eat, or access services. That is the all good. Uh, Hopefully whomever is who's listening live stream can read the captions. So when work and home are co-located, roles can leak across time, space, identity, and attention. The laptop is closed, but work self may still be present. You may be in a meeting while simultaneously seeing the laundry, hearing a family member, or noticing the dog needs to go out. The goal is not to declare segmentation good and integration bad. People differ, households differ, needs change. The question is, which boundary conditions support this person in this household at this time? And how might design make those boundaries visible, negotiable, and restorative? We call the place where those roles meet the mental space of adjacency. This is not necessarily a physical room. It is the psychological and somatic, or felt bodily, in between where work self and home self touch, leak, clash, or cooperate. Design can help us navigate that adjacency. A transition ritual can signal a role change. A visual threshold can reduce leakage. Sound, scent, touch, light, or a portable set of tools can become cues. A reset practice can restore domestic space after work. So boundaries are not only walls, they can be sensory, temporal, behavioral, symbolic, and relational. And that leads to a very important point. There is no one right way to work from home. In this chapter, we identified 3 common approaches to navigating the relationship between work and home: the segmenter, the vollier, and the integrator. I'm not going to explain them yet. Which one are you? Just notice which word, or perhaps the idea of that word, pulls at you. These are not personality types or diagnosis. They're ways of understanding boundary management, tendencies, and environmental needs. The segmenter tends to benefit from stronger separation. Clear borders, dedicated space, a cognitive zone in which work can happen with fewer boundary leaks, and equally importantly, a place work can be left. For this person, separation is not rigidity for rigidity's sake, and it does not necessarily mean isolation. It means having agency over when and how those boundaries open and close. It can be a form of care. Strong boundaries can support focus, professional identity, and recovery.
How elementary?
Even with a highly separated environment, we can intentionally create a connector for play, movement, and community. The volleyer uses a different boundary strategy. This person moves rhythmically between demands and settings. Stability may not come from one perfect room. It may come from portable tools, rapid setup and reset rituals, and the ability to establish a coherent work self in different places. Movement can easily be misread as disorganization, but for the volleyer, tactical mobility may actually be the boundary strategy. The question becomes, how do we make movement coherent rather than costly? And the integrator is comfortable with more porous blending, provided there are adequate anchors. A desk, an island, a sofa, place to stand. Different settings can support different cognitive, social, and somatic needs across the day. This is not simply working everywhere. It is the ability to move intentionally among supportive anchors according to the rhythm, task, posture, connection, and bodily need. For the integrator, flexibility works when it is supported, not when it simply means there are no boundaries at all. On the screen, we have beautiful leafy shadows in a dark green setting. Why does this, looking at this, feel calming? I'm not going to give you a lecture on Ulrich tonight. I want to point to one useful synthesis from supportive design. People benefit when environments provide experiences of control, social support, and positive distraction. Positive distraction is particularly interesting because it can overlap with attention restoration theory describes as soft fascination, something that gently holds attention without demanding it. Natural light, moving leaves, views, texture, delight. The larger point is that regulation is not produced only by removing stressors. Environments can also provide resources. So here's a translation I would like to make explicit. Boundary theory helps us identify what is happening, roles overlap, boundaries blur, attention leaks, identities shift. Trauma-informed design helps us decide what to do about it. It asks us to shape supportive boundaries, support regulation, increase agency and choice, protect belonging, and create conditions for flourishing. Boundary theory explains the problem. Trauma-informed design informs the response. This is the difference between naming a phenomenon and designing with it. These theoretical lenses are not competing explanations. They answer different questions. Boundary theory helps us understand why people struggle when roles overlap. The trauma-informed design framework asks us how we intentionally respond through policy, process, and the built environment. Supportive design clarifies some of the things people need in order to reduce stress and restore capacity. And creating home as haven is our attempt to translate those lenses into practical design strategies while acknowledging that there is no single right way to work from home. These aren't competing theories. They're complementary lenses that allow us to move from understanding lived experience toward actionable design. Let me show you what this looks like. As the beginning of our case study portion, I want to underscore one thing before we enter it. As I've said, I think you're hearing this, there's not one size to fit every nervous system. Archetypes are not fixed identities, they're not prescriptions, they're ways of noticing patterns in boundary preference and environmental supports. The goal is not to decide which type of worker everyone should become. The goal is to design with enough specificity and choice that different people can function and flourish without having to fight their environments. For the segmenter, the primary need is stronger differentiation. Clear thresholds reduce boundary leakage. Ergonomic work zones support sustained focus. Intra-boundary circulation allows movement without forcing the person out of the cognitive zone. And a purposeful connector can provide access to play or community without dissolving the boundary entirely. Together, these strategies create a kind of self-contained ecosystem, a place where deep work can happen without the continual friction of the main household. Again, separation here is not withdrawal, it is a regulatory strategy. One design possibility for the segmenter is the pseudo-commute. I don't mean recreating traffic in your hallway. What disappeared for many people in work from home was transitional time. The sensory and temporal cues that told the body, I am entering work, and later, I am leaving work. A threshold, a short walk, a change in light, music, clothing, scent, or sequence can become a waypoint. The pseudo-commute becomes a nervous system cue. Over time, those embodied cues can signal, now I'm moving into work, and now I am coming home. The volleyeur needs something quite different, coherence through nomadic agility. Professional identity is anchored less to a single coordinate and more to a reliable set of portable supports. That may mean a kit of tools, backup zones, quick setup and dissolve rituals, and the ability to move without losing privacy, focus, or professional insights. For some people, movement itself is professional agency. The design task is therefore not to force the volleyeur into one permanent workstation. It is to make mobility legible, supported, and recoverable. For the volleyeur, tactical portability is not simply work anywhere. It means curating the visual cone, what falls within your field of view while you're working, so distraction is reduced. It means using mobile devices as spatial tools, not only technologies. It may include auditory control of olfactory cues or tactile objects that help establish work self. And critically, it includes closure, a ritual that dissolves the workspace and restores domestic environment. Portability can support a sense of safety when it gives someone control over where and how the boundary is made. The integrator's design need is a network of anchors rather than a single bounded territory. Multiple anchors, tactical mobility, layered sensory regulation, support for individual rhythms. The main anchor might support concentrated work. A transition perch might allow a shift in posture or attention. A collaborative stage might support body doubling, conversation, or shared creative energy. Together, these become what we call a somatic tapestry of anchors, different places available to meet different needs without requiring the person to leave the ecology of home. The design moves here are deceptively simple. Layer light, views, and air. Enable choice of posture and place. Support connection and body doubling. Use meaningful objects as cues for identity, continuity, attention, or comfort. These are not merely decorative preferences. They can become an ecology of small regulatory supports. The environment can do some of the holding. And this may be the most important finding from these cases. The most powerful change was not only spatial, it was interpretive. When people began to understand how their environments interacted with their own needs and rhythms, things that could have been experienced as personal shortcomings could instead be understood as environmental mismatches. A break could become restoration. Moving to another place could become regulation rather than distraction. Creating a boundary was not a failure to integrate work and home, it was a legitimate need. Trauma-informed design can help reframe what feels like personal failure as a mismatch between people and the conditions around them. And some of those conditions can be designed differently. And now I want to pull the lens back out. Work from home is one case. Every environment participates in regulation. Schools regulate attention and movement. Hospitals regulate privacy, vigilance, and control. Shelters regulate safety and belonging. Birth rooms regulate intimacy, agency, and physiology. Streets regulate mobility and encounter. Preserved buildings carry memory and identity. The question is not whether environments participate in regulation. The question is whether we have designed for that regulation intentionally, ethically, and equitably. This brings me back to this room and beyond it, to design studies and architecture, certainly, but also to the public, to the people joining us by live stream, and to the many disciplines increasingly interested in how environments affect human experience, from neuroscience and public health to education and the social sciences. Our disciplines work at different scales and with different materials, but each shapes conditions in which people can thrive. Architecture works with experience, thresholds, and connection. Interior architecture shapes sensory experience and belonging. Landscape architecture engages ecology, restoration, and well-being. Historic preservation carries memory, identity, and continuity. Urban design shapes mobility, equity, and community. Sustainable design engages planetary health, resilience, and stewardship. Real estate development influences investment, stewardship, and social impact. And design for human health and well-being gives us an explicit language for regulation and flourishing. Trauma-informed design is not another specialty that sits beside all of this. It is a way of seeing, a lens that can inform every design discipline. So if trauma-informed design is a way of seeing, what might we begin to look for? Look for the moments when a space quietly asks too much of the body. Where is attention being spent unnecessarily? Where is agency missing? What would make this environment more regulating, not merely more efficient? These questions can be asked at the scale of a room, a building, a landscape, a neighborhood, or a system. And despite everything we've learned, I think we've barely scratched the surface of understanding exactly how environments do this. The next frontier is not proving that environments matter, it is understanding how they matter. So if you remember only 5 things from this talk tonight, please have them be these. The environment is active. It shapes attention, vigilance, regulation, and identity. Stress is spatial. Small environmental stressors can accumulate. Trauma-informed design is interconnected. Policy, process, and built environment need to align. Design is contextual. Regulatory supports have to fit people, histories, households, and communities. And finally, flourishing is a design ambition. Yes, we wish for fewer harms, but not only fewer harms. We need more conditions for agency, meaning, connection, competence, and growth. Think back to the places you imagined at the beginning, place where you think more clearly, and the place that drains you. I hope that these places look different to you now. Thank you for spending this time thinking with me. Before we open this into conversation, I want to leave you with a few resources. The Trauma Informed Design Society has additional materials on the framework, and the sources listed here represent some of the bodies of scholarship that shaped tonight's lecture, from boundary theory and supportive design to allostatic load, languishing, and our Creating Home as Haven chapter. I also want to acknowledge again my chapter co-authors, Ashley Gonzalez, Alina Asnaga, Adrian Erdman, Krishna Srinivasan, Janet Roach, and Christine Cowart. This kind of scholarship is collaborative work. Thank you for spending this time thinking with me. Now, I'd love to open this into conversation. Perhaps the question I'd most like to leave us with is, what would change if we designed for regulation before productivity? Thank you.
To come up to the microphone here so everybody in the room and at home can hear the question?
Hello. So I just wanted to ask, what role do you think, so sorry, what role do you think workplace relationships also play into designing for a happier work from home environment if you have, say, maybe over communicative coworkers, or there's a lack of trust about work being completed outside of an office setting? How do you approach that from a design perspective?
What do you think?
My first,
I can answer, but I'm curious if this is something that
yeah.
you're hypothetical or something that you're going through yourself.
Not necessarily going through myself, just something I feel like we're seeing more and more, are a lot of people who've been in the workforce for a while are pushing from to go back to the office just because there seems to be a lack of trust about work from home setups. And I was just curious if this is something that needs to be handled socially or if there is an actual design approach.
Well, going with the idea that it's policy with the design process and the built environment, there certainly is that level of, let us make sure the organization is supportive of working from home. Being a person who resides in Oregon, all year long, I have the exemplary work environment at the BAC because they understand that I'm in a different time zone and they kindly do not schedule meetings early in the day. It helps that we're a night school. So that's one example of how the policy is designed. But those types of questions can't be answered as a blanket answer. It needs to be set into the context of the industry or the firm or wherever you're talking about.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to take one question online and you're up next. No, come to the mic. You be right there. So Yoel asks, for people who don't have much control over their home or workspace, what small change can make a real difference?
Well, the first idea that comes to mind is one that I also lived through during COVID when our daughter was doing school at home like every other kid, and the small change we made for her was to put up some temporary, I think we used tomato stakes on the ceiling with shower curtains, 3 of them around her table area where her laptop was. So she had control over saying, the curtain's shut, I'm at school now. So it's a $20, $30 solution. That was something that could be removed when things return to normal. So this is where, being designers, we need to be creative and think about where can you execute some control in your scheduling, coordinate with your roommates in a way that is going to work for everybody. Obviously the built environment is why we're all here, but you must think about how we're experiencing the relationship between the space and our behaviors.
One thing I appreciate from this presentation is the stress of theory of mind. I'm curious to know more about any insights into your research process and seeing what user needs rose up. Yeah.
We have many research processes, many. Design research is a whole field in and of itself to understand how to access people's true understandings. In the chapter specifically, we worked amongst a co-authorship team and had lots of generative conversations that allowed us to investigate more deeply our assumptions and double checking and seeing where there might be evidence outside of our work that supported other people's experiences. So we have a long review of academic articles that would show this is where our ideas are landing in other people's work and research. Being a pro bono activity to write a chapter, right? It's not a well-funded research activity, but this is part of becoming a practicing designer, is knowing how to approach your clients in a way that you're not preconceiving what they want for themselves, but allowing them to feel that they can trust you to share the more intimate parts of their experiences that might be typically not something that's talked about. That brings in a lot of insights into, well, this seemed like a good idea on paper, but then imagining the reality. But yeah, design research is a whole topic. It's a challenge. It's a challenging one because there are infinite variables in built environments, and humans have infinite variables. So to access what's going on subconsciously, I will say that for my doctoral work, I used quick ethnography and did video work with the families in labor with an ongoing consent process. It went through the ethical review process, and we viewed the video footage of their birth experience, and they were able to speak from their subconscious behaviors that they would not have put down on a survey or asked at an interview. They would not have noticed or remembered. So it's something that could probably become even more of a topic of how we get more unified in design research. Yeah, it's a great question.
Thank you, Davis, for sharing. And I mean, I'll be biased for sure since I'm in the Design for Human Health program. I think I'm wondering here more about how this could be, I mean, twofold of it, how this could be transferred into actual workplaces. Because I think based on the past decade and a half, things have moved into more open space office setting. And then they realized that this doesn't work for everyone. So we started to have these telephone booths or other options. And it gave that agency of choice. But at the same time, I think no one is knowing what is going on in the right direction. And that has been in the office space. And then COVID came in and everyone had to work from home. And 6 years after, apparently, there is that back to the office wave of like at least 3 days because of the trust issues and all of that. I think this is, maybe I'm asking here first, have you looked into that larger scope, or do you think such work could be translated into how can we improve work environments? And then also create that trust by providing options that actually give companies or employers options to say, yeah, we can trust that they can work from home and replicate that on a larger scale, probably larger scope of people as well.
Yeah, I hear what you're asking, and that's again like we need more design researchers because there's an entire field of people studying neuroinclusion workspaces, and their findings may very well, let's not all be pioneers. Let's go towards what we already know, and sure, knowing about segmenter involvers in the workplace versus work from home. Absolutely. And the idea of this is using the work from home environment as a case to demonstrate how one would then use this lens of trauma-informed design to make specific recommendations. And our research process is quite thorough at the TID Society. So it's, we're wanting to scale it up, but it's each time it must be very nuanced and very high touched and agile to meet that set of people's needs because they're going to be different. You could have 5 different sets of people with the same criteria and 5 different geographic locations, and every other thing was the same, but those different geographic locations are going to also have different cultural experiences, and therefore you have to make new decisions based on the evidence. Good question. Thank you, Aya.
Very good presentation.
Thank you.
Many of us are working with remote teams a lot these days, obviously. And this may be in your chapter, but are there resources that would be where, a team could share it with their coworkers and start the discussion? Assuming not all of them will want to read academic research, but to help them understand which of these 3 am I, and also just bring awareness within the company, and then give them ideas of how they can.
I'm hearing an opportunity for us. Thank you.
Almost like a how-to kit.
Yes. Yeah.
At the
Yeah.
tactical.
Absolutely. No, not at this time. No, there's not. We don't have anything in that nature. But it certainly makes sense. This is a service, is information that can empower people. Share it out widely. And I will say, we do not write academically. I mean, it's professional and it's in an academic journal volume of edited chapters, but it's, it should be, you should feel safe to approach the chapter for sure.
No, I'm very interested in it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to put one online question and then you're welcome. Lori would like to know, how might we get schools who often don't have a budget for redesign or new build to begin considering and prioritizing trauma-informed?
Oh, that's a great question. I have an answer for that. We do have a resource called the Trauma-Informed Design K-12 Evaluation Tool. It is available through our website, TiDsociety.com, and that was designed specifically through the goodness of American Society of Interior Designers, Harte, to grant us a small bit of funds to run that research. So the TiD-Eval K-12 is meant specifically for folks to walk into a school with their 12-page PDF with the school administrators or teachers, designers, and figure out where are the top priority needs that need attending to: hallways, bathrooms, cafeterias, and come up with like a little bit of a hierarchy of understanding how some changes could be made. Now, that's the question everybody wants to know. What can I do today with no money on the ground? Well, you're going to have to think creatively. When I worked in a middle school in Boston here, we worked with furniture manufacturing companies that were happy to donate some of their furniture for a regulation room. Similar, you've got to network and meet people, and relationships are at the heart of everything we do. Thanks for the question, Laura.
Great talk.
Thank you.
I'm just curious because we made several references to COVID days. So in your research, have you looked at like multi-person households where like families or roommates, and in those cases, like do different people, like their work styles, do they go into like polar opposites, or do they kind of find each other in the same spectrum, or like how different personalities balance each other in the same household?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I mean, it's certainly that dynamic of these are real living humans, and you might choose the perfect design solution for a family of three working people or two. And one of those people says, actually, I have this new pattern and new rhythm and new routine, and things need to change up. So that's where I made sure to emphasize that as we use these as informational guideposts for ourselves to understand ourselves better, knowing how they are in communication with each other. It's never going to just be one set moment, but certainly there's friction. If you don't have enough doors and somebody is able to project louder than somebody else, then you lean on technology, right? You find some good headphones and you know ask each other in ways that feel like perhaps communication, just normal talking, can sometimes be a good design solution, right in and of itself. Hopefully that touches on it. We don't have there's no magic bullet. Say, here's the solution. Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Hart.
Hello.
I'm currently working on a project for a nonprofit where I live. And how do you balance creating trauma-informed design to create positive space along with heightened security measures to make the space more secure from potential violent attacks?
Yes, we grapple with that a lot, and we offer continuing ed units on such topics as how perimeters of spaces need to be entered and have the safety checks happen in ways that physically keep people safe. And then is there an opportunity to create something that you're asking about creativity within such a setting? So we are getting better, I think, as a human species to hold both and moments. You can feel very excited about one thing and also sad at the same time. And so with your built environment, creating like this is not a type of safety check that dampens you down, but allows you to walk in and say, I know I'm good. Now that's behind me. And there's some slight visual cue that lets you know that part of your experience is now over. Now you're in your space. And within there, is there opportunities for I need, you see I don't have pictures of my desk up here because I need a lot of visual richness, like more than most people, the sensory stimulation of I'm the type that looks very disorganized, but in one anchored space. So you have to kind of honor what you know about yourself and know this is human nature. It's not a personal shortcoming. Yeah. Good luck with your work.
Hello. So you touched on that kitchen wall. That is one of the main things that I focus on when I do design. So just making sure that that kitchen space is not, your back is not turned, when someone's there washing the dishes, things of that nature. I think it's very important and meaningful. And a lot of people don't even think about that during design, especially contractors, in which some of the people are not the main ones that are utilizing, those spaces on a day to day. What do you think that we can do, beyond our scope to kind of invoke that change on a larger scale?
I mean, isn't it just a matter of like talking about it out loud to make it a normalized? This is the thing we talk about now. Like, we don't want to feel hypervigilant. It doesn't feel good. We want to feel like we can, choose to have our body angled in a certain way, not be interpreted as rude. And if designers and architects are thinking about the way the flow through the space, is there this? How are they going to use this part of the kitchen? Is it going to be used as a desk someday? Imagining 20, 30 years out, own your imagination, like practice really molding it and developing it, carve out time, put it on your calendar to, build that muscle of the imagination, and you can feel the answers of there needs to be some way to show there's an access angle. There's certainly interior decorations. We never call it that. It's important to have it be. Yeah, there are the elements of the space like mirrors can go a long way. So it's making sense of how people live and how they might live. it's a moving target, and that's the beauty of the work that we do. We wanted to, I used to work at a Frank Lloyd Wright house, and he had very prescribed behaviors. Cannot move anything. The bed is where the bed is, and it will always be there forever. It would not move. This is built into the wall because, his belief that women need to be in the kitchen, and the kitchen was small and windowless and unappealing and a very horrible place to be. Like this is behavior that you're being prescribed by the architect. So, yeah, good luck with your imagination development. You're welcome.
Well, thank you for your research.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Can I move this? So I think using these tools, I could design for my own traumatic experiences and be able to regulate myself. But I actually work with large groups of young children who can't necessarily articulate those traumas and those feelings. And one child may benefit from a hug, the other one may start screaming from that. Did you find in your research any universal truth that you could say this helps everyone because we're human?
I mean, I would certainly invite you to get our book. I should have brought it with me to hold it up because it's so like easily holdable. You all have it in the first year DHH class gets to look at it. It's very accessible. It's very like there's a lot of information in it, but it's not a big textbook that you got to lug around. It's like eminently pick-upable, and we have this beautiful font. So it's like this is something that you come back to a lot. Last year, students said, "Oh, my firm has one, and it's not on my desk anymore because people keep taking it." And so the universal truth is, yes, you need to build in design elements that will support the most vulnerable of your kids and the centrality of choice. I mean, we base our work on SAMHSA, that's the trauma-informed principles, that includes choice as one of the elements. And obviously, it's not free reign. Just go do whatever you want all day, kids. It's providing the routine and familiarity so they know what to expect. And certainly, I can think again of my own experience when my daughter was in the fourth grade and the teacher set up the classroom in such a way it felt like every child in the room was getting an accommodation just by the way she had the room design done and her temperament and the way she organized the space. So when I sought out a possible 504, I was told all of the things you're asking for in the 504 are not needed because this teacher is already providing it. So anticipatory, again, with the imagination, like what are some of the opportunities to give all the kids what they need? And you can see their traumas with their stress responses. So they don't need to articulate anything. Their stress responses are telling you everything that you need to know anyway. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is our last question. Please give a round of applause.